The hard thing with Kaguya-sama is picking like a favorite dynamic in a cast full of interesting pairings, whether romantic, whether honestly frenemies, whether it's something just like close allies. But there's always a part of me that whenever I get a Chika and Miyuki theme, it's hard not to, for me anyway, to say that's probably my favorite duo or pairing that Kaguya-sama has shown us to date. Because the thing about the mother-son dynamic that's been going on for a while, ever since I raised that boy, I mean, that was kind of like the first moment that really was like, okay, I feel like this might be my new favorite thing in Kaguya. The idea of the disappointment that Chika radiates when it comes to seeing Miyuki fail and knowing that she very well is probably going to have to teach him, and teaching him is something that probably is going to send her to the grave 10 years earlier than she would have if she never had to teach him anything. The stress gets to her. But the fact that it's not just a simple gag of disappointment and reluctant kind of like help, the fact that she legit cares for him. So when people are like, hey, you suck ass at this, go do something else, obviously was said in a pretty polite way, hey, there's other things everyone can do. I mean, it's probably, anyone would say the same thing if you've wasted hundreds of balloons trying to make some balloon animals or just shapes and things like that. But the fact that she gets upset, that how dare you, basically, put down my son. He's trying his best, and if you don't encourage him to get better, then therefore he won't excel at things in life because, practice doesn't make perfect. So that kind of dynamic of always making it funny, the disappointment faces. Look at the very end of the episode, right? She kind of explains like, hey, you were using expired balloons. Like, they're obviously gonna pop. They pop on me. And then immediately we see, even with proper balloons, he still sucks ass. And you go from having this, like, really emotional, sweet moment of seeing, like, how much she cares and, like, is always gonna encourage the boy. And then she just gets so disappointed and she forgets why she was even trying to help in the first place. That dynamic, to me, is the best. Like, I think if I was to pick something in terms of just pure writing quality, I think, honestly, Miyuki and you, or even Kaguya and you, I think what's happening there, what has happened there in the backstory / in present is probably what I would rank as the overall best pairing in terms of what it does for, like, really great character writing moments. But honestly, I'm a comedy junkie, but then also to see how much she generally does care, I think that's just my favorite part of Kaguya-sama among the billion other things that are great about this. But damn, I was not expecting something like that because honestly, the Culture Festival was just kind of coming along. I thought, if anything, it would be more you-focused because, the fact that he gets to work alongside his crush. You have someone like Ino who kind of isn't fitting in, but also is kind of finding her own place and voice. The character who I thought was going to be one of her biggest foils turned out to be someone who probably is more similar to her than not, but just kind of speaks her mind and is a little more blunt. But the fact that they very much were setting in motion like, okay, we're building up this festival. I wasn't expecting the president or Chika or even Kaguya that much. I thought it was just going to be more on that side, and then maybe there'd just be some random side characters. So to my surprise, they blended this one quite well because up until the last third of the episode, I enjoyed it. I really have never said I hate a Kaguya episode, but it wasn't necessarily the episode of the season or among some of my favorites that season 3 has shown us. But then to see how it all connected by the end, I came to appreciate the moments that came prior a lot more. And I think that's what this show does a really good job at, is that sometimes you'll watch an episode of Kaguya. So in this case, we start with you. We then have kind of like the Kaguya, Miyuki, just random kind of like looking at characters, interviewing and things like that. And then we end with the mother-son duo comedy team there, right? But I mean, the fact of the matter is, the way they all connected and the bridge that they formed here ends up making me appreciate moments that came prior to my favorite point in the episode so much more impactful. Especially given that there was almost a hint of Ishigami kind of sadness to what the president was saying in this episode. And I heard that this is going to be his season to truly take off into best boy territory. And the fact of the matter is, when he starts talking about his own failures and how he almost feels like he's running away from accepting the truth of him maybe not being up to par with where he should be, the fact of the matter is, that gave me the same vibes as when we learned about Yu's backstory and when the president kind of came and pulled him back into the light sort of a thing. And the fact that you're already getting that taste now, and we're not even close to being done this season. I mean, technically we're halfway through the season, but it's not like we're at episode 10 or 11, right? And the fact that we're kind of creeping in, we're not rushing into anything, but we're creeping into the more emotional. And the fact that someone like Kaguya just loves seeing that side of the president and just learning more about him, but then also having that encouragement. Something I mentioned, I think it was in last week's video, was that even if the characters poke fun or belittle the other, you can tell the student council has each other's backs. And that's why characters like Chika, Ino, who constantly puts down you, and Chika constantly puts down the president, they always have each other's back sort of a thing when push comes to shove or they're in dire need of help. And that's what this show has done a really good job at since season 2. Season 1, amazing season, don't get me wrong. But once season 2 really got into the thick of it with the emotional, and seeing how season 3, I think, is perfectly blending everything that came before while still introducing new ideas and just subtle jokes that you can easily miss first time around, but just leave me rolling. I think one of the best examples was when, this girl is talking about how she doesn't have any interest in raising kids, and then Chika's like, for someone who is involved in the making of babies, that's an interesting thing to say. And I'm like, if that ain't the best shade I've heard, I'll take goddamn. This show and the episode, they really proved me wrong because I was expecting to like this episode, not love it. But by the time it wrapped up, I just came to appreciate everything that came before, the interviews, the kind of like building up the will they, won't they with you, and just the idea of his own competition within that kind of culture festival club there. It was really great. I think one of the funnier moments for me, though, has to be that board game moment where, like, they're interviewing all these different clubs of what they're going to do, and everyone gets approved. And then, of course, they get denied because it just felt like they were about to start up, like, a civil war or, like, a human death game. I have no idea, but they were rightfully rejected. I think that was a rightful rejection if I've ever seen one. I just continue to love the presentation, the way they shift up styles, whether it's almost like the retro feel with almost like the glitchy, almost box-in screen, to just the numerous times character models completely shift in shape around, or even just like the kind of classic anime directing where characters are being extreme or goofy, and then you have the side character pop up like on the corner or something, or just in the distance, almost being like the viewer being like, what in the actual hell am I looking at? I think this show just continues to get better. Even if an episode isn't necessarily my favorite, I feel like it's an important part. It's a building block to the main foundation that we're trying to, see the final result of. And the final result of Kaguya, I feel like, is going to be something that's going to be remembered for some time with anime. And obviously we know we're going to get multiple seasons more of this. The show is going to keep coming out. And it doesn't feel like one of those shows that's just going to keep coming out because the author extended it for no reason. This is one of those comedy series that's clearly extended past what you would normally see because there's character arcs. There's these emotional high points surrounded by all the great comedy. And because this isn't just a strict comedy series, I also feel like the author isn't losing ideas for the funny moments, because it's not necessarily an episode just, okay, here's 50 moments of what should be funny things. You might have 30 funny things and then a handful of emotional moments to tie it all together. So it never feels like one side is overpowering the other or dragging out the author's intentions on how they're trying to get to certain points. But I love this episode. Really impressed me. Excited to see where they're going to go, especially with this festival. So let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.